Time now for Focus. Today we have a report on how French businesses are handling the highly sensitive topic of religion in the workplace. Earlier this week, Europe's top court ruled that companies can ban staff from wearing visible religious symbols, including headscarves. This report by Karim Yaoui with Catherine Viette.
The site of the Peugeot plant in Aulnay-sous-Bois looks like a ghost town. Signs swaying, security posts deserted as if in a hurry. The plant was the region's lifeblood, and its closing in 2013 was painful for its employees. Mounting losses, falling sales in Europe, the economic reasons for the closure seemed obvious. Nevertheless, at the beginning of this year, French politician Jean-Christophe Lagarde took aim at religion, saying Islam was partly responsible for the plant's closure.
It's been kept silent, but it's a fact. One of the reasons the Peugeot Citroën car plant was shut down is because religious practice was ubiquitous amongst its employees. Less time on the job, less productivity. It's one of the reasons why management decided to pull the plug on this plant.
This declaration sparked an outcry from the car makers' unions. Management swiftly refuted this argument. Abdallah Mubin has spent his whole career working at PSA factories. He says it's nonsense, and if religious concerns did exist, it's never disrupted the rhythm of the workday.
His main argument is that employees observing Ramadan had a negative impact on production. This is not true. Muslims who worked on the afternoon and evening shift were granted 5 extra minutes to feed themselves, in addition to the required 15 minutes pause. So that's 20 minutes that these employees had to make up for. Muslim employees would coordinate with non-Muslim workers to make sure the assembly line never stopped, whether day or night.
The argument that religion causes problems at work is nothing new. In the early 80s, a series of major strikes paralyzed the auto industry. The government pointed the finger at Shiite religious instigators, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of Muslim immigrants were Sunni. Their demands were about salary, not religion.
L'augmentation de salaire de 400 francs. Elles ont refusé. La qualification des OS. Il y a des gens qui sont 14 ans, 15 ans, qui n'ont même pas P1. 14 ans, 15 ans.
Today's workers aren't shy about fighting perceived stigmatization on the job.
Back in the 70s, the French would consider Muslims in the workplace as temporary immigrants. Muslim workers themselves shared this point of view. They weren't in France to stay. But nowadays, it's no longer the same. We have French citizens born in France who are Muslim and aren't going anywhere. They no longer want to tiptoe around, asking, "Excuse me, please, may I practice my religion?" They consider they have rights, and often enough will assert this claim.
Here in France, there is a strict legal separation of religious and civic life. It's known as laïcité, and it applies to those who work in the country's vast public sector, like the Paris Transportation Authority. The RATP was the focus of unwanted press when it emerged that one of the men involved in the attack at the Bataclan concert hall was a former employee. Concerns grew that management was tolerating religious behavior on the job that contradicted its own policies.
For us bus drivers, there have been cases when at the end of our shift, when we head back to the depot to hand over the bus to another colleague, well, it's happened that Muslim colleagues have refused to drive the bus because it was a female driver who had just been at the wheel.
Since 2005, a laïcité or secularity clause has been part of the company's labor agreement. In 2013, RATP started publishing a practical guide to secularism.
We had rules limiting this kind of religious excess, but perhaps we did not implement them the way we do now. The 2015 terror attacks, which have traumatized France, have completely changed the collective consciousness. It's a different state of mind, and companies are on the same wavelengths, realizing they too have to remain ever more vigilant.
For private companies like insurance giant AXA, the situation regarding secularism is less regimented. For example, management allows religious symbols to be worn by its employees.
AXA France has a specific approach when it comes to religion in the workplace. We let our employees, if it is their wish, to express their attachment to a religion. This means, for example, wearing a distinctive religious symbol. This is not a problem for us, as we believe the aggregation of all these different individuals is a source of strength for our company.
To help navigate the sensitive topic, certain companies have been using religious specialists to advise them. Whether they adapt a policy of strict secularism or one of religious openness, one thing is certain: a clear directive on what is allowed and what is not will save workplace headaches.
For more on this, I'm now joined in the studio by Asif Arif. He's a lawyer specialising in civil liberties. Hello, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, first of all, if you could give us your reaction to the ruling that I mentioned in the introduction, that by the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, that found that it's okay for companies to ban religious symbols in the workplace. This after a woman in Belgium and one here in France were both dismissed for refusing to take off their headscarves.
There were not actually in both cases. You have effectively two cases who are concerned, one for Belgium, one for France. For France, it has been recognized that the fact that a client is asking actually to the main employee that the person who is coming to his premises to deal with engineering computer do not have to wear headscarf is actually an indirect discrimination. The court recognized that, but on the Belgian perspective, the claimant has been dismissed. But why he get dismissed? Because Belgium recognized what we called here businesses of tendance. Tendance means when you have a political idea or when you have a religious idea of your company. For example, if you want to say in your interior reglementation or whatever you can say, it's a norm who will most of all taking care of how people will interact into their businesses. You can say in Belgium that our company is atheist type of company, so we don't want any religion sign.
That's the thing. There wasn't one of the women told that in that particular company, her wearing the headscarf might be an issue with their clients.
Yeah, that wasn't that case. That case concerning the problem with the client wearing the headscarf, it was in the French side.
Right.
And in France, we do not allow this type of entreprise de tendance. We do not recognize them. We recognize them only in one way, which is when your statutory obligation is something related with politics, something related with religion, or something related with sexual orientation, for example. This is when you can legally discriminate in between categories of people.
So will this ECJ ruling actually not have that much of an impact on similar cases on a domestic level in France?
Yeah, totally, because what the ECJ has said is exactly word by word what the French case law is being ruled since a couple of years. Right. When it concerns a private business, a private company, not a public, a private company, you cannot, in principle, forbid any manifestation of your religiosity. But if you decided to make a limitation, this limitation shall be general. It cannot concern one religious sign in particular. So, for example, the veil. You cannot say in your regulation that, okay, we will ban the headscarf. This is forbidden. And it should be proportionate with the activity of your company. For example, if you're working into a petrol company, of course you will not wear a headscarf because there is a potential problem with security or safety measures.
So from what you were saying, when presidential candidates react to this ruling as if it's groundbreaking and it really changes a lot and it's important that it's come about, they're really politicizing the issue because we're in the run-up to a presidential election, because actually it's not really that much of an issue in France.
I mean, politicians are doing their work. They are politicians. So they will trigger the politician aspect of this. But this is not true. There's no big deal with this judgment concerning France, at least. Because...
So what about other countries then?
Maybe concerning Belgium, I'm not aware about Belgium law, but concerning Belgium, maybe it is a revolutionary concept or whatever, but we can see Belgium didn't make a big deal out of it. We made it because France has been, since a couple of years after the Paris attack, we have been ridiculously like we are just focusing on religious matter. And this is not the main thing. The main thing is actually dealing with religious sign into a company is a day-by-day thing. You can say it's obviously people who are working for a company dealing with chemicals or whatever, weaponry or whatever, they will not allow religious signs. But this is something very common. And even the person who is being a candidate for being hired in such kind of job will never say, okay, I want to hear my words, my headscarf, even though I'm getting into very dangerous, I will be in danger. So the politicians are actually playing with the far right electoral vote. So in Holland, we have this problem. And you can see whenever there is a problem of identity or whenever there is a problem of religious, they are triggering it in front of the political scene. And they are saying, oh, look, there is a problem with Muslims, because the problem is often related with Muslims. So this is not a problem of identity. This is a very day-by-day usual way of dealing.
All right. Well, thank you very much indeed for your time and your analysis, Asif Arif. And thank